my name is Claire. I'm 48 years old, and the story I'm about to share is not just about heartbreak or betrayal. It's about rediscovery, strength, and love in the most unexpected places. 10 years ago, I married a man named Nathan. He was 5 years younger than me, charming, spontaneous, and seemed to love me deeply. At the time, I thought age was just a number, that maturity wasn't necessarily tied to the number of candles on a birthday cake. For a while, our marriage was beautiful. We travelled, laughed, and even renovated our small apartment together. But over time, the cracks started to show. Little things I once found endearing became irritants. He became distant, and I became more aware of the emotional gap forming between us. After 5 years, our marriage came to an abrupt end. It wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the end of an illusion. Nathan had been unfaithful. Not just a one-night mistake, but a full-blown affair with a younger woman who was pregnant with his child. The shock shattered me. I remember staring at the white walls of our once shared living room, the silence heavier than any argument we ever had. I asked myself over and over how I missed the signs, how someone I loved so much could betray me so completely. But there were no easy answers, just a devastating truth. The man I thought was my forever had already built a future with someone else. The divorce was ugly. When I confronted Nathan about the affair, he didn't even try to deny it. He looked at me with an almost casual indifference and told me he was going to be a father and needed to focus on his new family. I was stunned. What about the family we had talked about, the dreams we had nurtured together? I decided to pursue alimony. After all, I had supported Nathan through his medical school years, working long shifts as a nurse while he studied and trained. But he refused. He said I was just trying to cling on and accused me of being bitter. The battle moved to court, where everything became about documents, timelines, and facts, as if love could be dissected by legal arguments. To make matters worse, his family, especially his father, sided with him. His father, a respected surgeon, told me flat out during a mediation session that I should let Nathan go and focus on finding someone my own age. The words stung more than I expected. I'd always thought I had at least a neutral relationship with his family. Apparently, loyalty ran deep, even when it stood on morally shaky ground. I felt humiliated, betrayed not just by a husband, but by a whole support system I had embraced as my own. The emotional toll was severe. I cried in my car, at work, in the shower, anywhere I could find solitude. My colleagues whispered, some out of concern, others from curiosity. It felt like I was living in a fishbowl, with everyone watching my life unravel. I needed an escape. The hospital where I worked, once a place of professional pride, had become unbearable. The glances, the whispers, even the well-meaning sympathy made it impossible to focus. So, I transferred to another facility across town. It was supposed to be a fresh start, but the wounds were too deep. After a few months, I quit altogether. Moving back in with my parents felt like a regression. At nearly 50, I never imagined I'd return to the pink-walled bedroom of my teenage years. But it turned out to be the sanctuary I didn't know I needed. My parents welcomed me without judgment, and for the first time in months, I was allowed to just be broken without having to explain myself. Needing something, anything to fill the void, I took a part-time job at a local supermarket. I wore a name tag and stacked shelves, ran registers, and helped elderly customers find canned peaches. It was humbling, but it was also oddly healing. No one there knew about Nathan or the scandal. I was just Claire, the new cashier who always smiled and knew the store layout like the back of her hand. As weeks turned into months, I found rhythm and even joy in the simplicity of it all. I became full-time. I was earning less but living more. The supermarket became my community, and its staff my unlikely friends. Slowly, the weight of the past began to lift. One afternoon, as I was rearranging a display of cereal boxes, my manager handed me a note with a blush and a wink. It was from a customer, apparently a regular, who had asked if I was single and open to being introduced to someone. I laughed it off at first, but curiosity got the better of me. That's how I met Richard. He was nothing like Nathan. He was 55, a widower, and ran a bookstore in town. We met for coffee, and what struck me immediately was his kindness. Not the performative kind, but a quiet, grounded warmth. He listened when I spoke. He shared stories about his late wife with honesty and respect, and when I told him about Nathan, he didn't flinch or pity me. He just held my hand and said, "You deserve peace." We dated for 6 months, often walking through parks or browsing books together in his store. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people discovering the comfort of companionship. Eventually, we decided to get married. There was no big wedding, just a quiet ceremony with close friends and family. For the first time in years, I felt safe, truly safe. Being married to Richard was like breathing fresh air after living underwater. He brought out the best in me, encouraged me to pursue hobbies I'd long abandoned, and, most importantly, respected me for who I was. He didn't try to fix me or make up for Nathan's mistakes. He just stood by me every single day in all the small ways that matter. We travelled to small towns, watched old movies on Friday nights, and adopted a cat named Muffin, who ruled the house with her tiny paws. I often looked at our life and marvelled at the twist of fate that brought us together. I'd thought love was behind me. I had prepared myself for solitude. But love, in its quiet, redemptive form, had found me again. Then, something unbelievable happened. I missed a period. At first, I thought it was menopause, the slow winding down I had come to expect. But something felt different. I was tired, nauseous, and my sense of smell was suddenly hyperactive. A home test turned positive. I stared at it for 10 minutes straight, as if willing it to change. At 48, I was pregnant. When I told Richard, he laughed in disbelief, then hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "We're going to be parents," he whispered, eyes misty. Doctors cautioned us about the risks: gestational diabetes, high blood pressure, complications. But every test, every scan showed a healthy heartbeat. We decided to embrace it. Life had given us a miracle, and we were not going to let fear steal its joy. At one of my prenatal checkups, fate had a cruel sense of humour. I walked into the hospital and saw a familiar name on the ID badge of a doctor: Nathan. He looked older, wearier, but the smugness was still there. When he saw me, visibly pregnant, his eyes widened in disbelief. "You? At your age?" he sneered. "Whose is it?" "Your grandson's." I stood tall. "My husband's, and he loves me more than you ever knew how." He laughed, but it was brittle. Later, I found out from a nurse that he had been reported multiple times for inappropriate behaviour. My incident was the last straw. He was let go. I didn't rejoice in his downfall, but I did feel closure. His chapter in my life was truly over. Months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl we named Lily. Holding her for the first time, I felt a kind of joy I didn't think was possible at my age. Richard kissed my forehead and promised to be the best father he could be. We raised Lily with love, laughter, and bedtime stories. I sometimes think back to my life with Nathan and realise that heartbreak is often the soil in which new joy grows. He lost everything chasing something fleeting. I, on the other hand, found everything I never knew I needed. This is my story, not of loss, but of beginning again, when it seemed too late, and finding a love that truly lasts.